So go back go back 2 months ago. If you recall, the great owner of the Colts, Jim Irsay, passed away. He had been dealing with illness, and now they have new ownership. It's the Irsay daughters, and I really like back then, last couple of years, I just have been befuddled by these off-season decisions by the Colts. But I think it's just because they didn't want to do anything major while Irsay was in poor health, which is why Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, still has a job, because I don't know. I mean, this will be year number 9. So in 8 years, 2 playoff appearances, 1 playoff win, 0 division titles, no answer at quarterback, and he's going into year number 9. So yeah, any other team I feel like would have gotten rid of this guy a while ago, but I'm just gonna say it's because they didn't want to do anything drastic. Maybe Ballard was close to the Irsays, and they didn't want to, which not great for a fan base, but you kind of understand it. But having said that, now that there's new ownership, I feel like pressure's on everybody this year. You mentioned Richardson. Yeah, pressure's super high right now. We don't even know if he can stay healthy for a full season. We don't know if he can complete 50% of his passes. We know that he can throw a deep ball. Like, there's no denying that. Anyone who's seen his highlights, like if you just compiled his highlights, it's honestly could be one of the best highlight tapes you could ever see from a quarterback. And I'm not just being a fanboy. It's true, but the lows are just incredibly bad. Just you can't hit 5-yard ins or 5-yard outs. It's just extremely inaccurate. But yeah, like I said, the GM's going to be under fire because if Richardson doesn't work, I would imagine he's out the door. I would imagine Shane Steichen, the head coach, will also be out the door if things don't go well this year. But having said that, I mean, we don't even know if AR is going to be the starting quarterback, though, week 1, because they signed Daniel Jones in the offseason. Normally, you would kind of just laugh at that because what's Daniel Jones shown that he can do any good? But recent history, I feel like, has shown that guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, these guys go to a new team who played horrible on another team, they kind of revive their career. So it's not crazy to think that Daniel Jones could be a capable starter for the Colts. And if that's true, then the Giants might just need to burn the whole ship down.
Yeah. With Richardson, I thought he was an interesting draft pick whenever they did draft him, because he had a lack of college experience, just in general. Like, he just hasn't played a lot of football, and he just has not been available since joining the team. Out of a possible 34 games that he could have played in, he's only played in 15. And then the games that he has, it hasn't been pretty. 11 touchdowns against 13 interceptions and a completion percentage just over 50%. And so I guess, yeah, there is a QB battle in Indianapolis between Richardson or Jones. And it's time will tell to see who ends up starting week 1. And it could be a situation where the guy who starts week 1 won't be starting halfway through the year. But yeah, the QB.
Here's the interesting thing, though, is that you look back these last 2 years where Richardson hasn't played too often and the quarterback play's been shaky. Well, the Colts haven't been bad by any means. I wouldn't say they've been great, but they've been 9-8 and 8-9. Going, I mean, their season, like, they're not. It's come down to the wire each year if they're going to make the playoffs or not. So on paper and just by record, it looks like they're just like steady quarterback play away from being a playoff team and possibly a division winner. But I mean, it just shows you how important quarterback is for the success of NFL teams.
Yeah, they got a couple key additions, or one key addition of note, with corner Travarius Ward. He was once undrafted. You know, he worked to become a number 1 cover guy with the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. But he's been richly rewarded as the Colts basically had their best corner since Stephon Gilmore in 22. So at least they've got that going on the defensive side. But as you mentioned,
new coordinator too. They got Lou Anarumo from the Bengals, who the Bengals are bad on defense last year, but
like
before that,
personnel.
In his tenure, it was bad personnel last year. I mean, the Bengals had a pretty decent defense, and the Colts desperately needed a change in scheme, I believe, after Gus Bradley was there for, I believe, 3 years. So, I mean, they also have names on defense. DeForest Buckner, I feel like, is one of the most underappreciated D tackles in the league. Like, he's just an absolute freak of a man. They signed Cam Bynum from the Vikings too to play for safety. He's a pretty underrated guy, I think. So their defensive success has got to come down to if their previous first round pick edge guys ever develop. That's another thing in the Chris Ballard tenure. You could argue the three most important positions in football for a good team are quarterback, left tackle, and your edge rushers. He's hit on offensive tackle. They do have a solid offensive tackle, but man, he's missed on a lot of edge rushers. Last year they drafted Latu. And if you recall, they picked 15th last year, but they had the choice of the best defensive guy in the draft, because that was that crazy draft where the first 14 picks were offensive players.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had a lot of pressure on him. Usually 15th overall picks don't have as much pressure, but I feel like being the first defensive guy, you got pressure on you, and he had an meh season. And they also have Kwity Paye, who's been there a few years. He was a first round guy, but it's just they haven't been great on the edge. And if just one of those guys steps up, I feel like that could just catapult this defense, and then you don't have to rely on steady quarterback play as much to be successful, especially in a weak division like this.
Yeah, plus they got a solid running back. We haven't even mentioned Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I think the receiver core is decent too. Pittman, Josh Downs is one of the really good slot guy. Alec Pierce is one of the best deep ball catchers in the league, especially last year. So yeah, I mean, I think they have enough weapons. Their O-line's decent. I mean, like I said, they have Bernard Ryman, offensive tackle. They've had Quentin Nelson, who's one of the best guards in the league. He's just an absolute force. So yeah, it's all there for Richardson to succeed, or if it comes down to Daniel Jones to succeed. It's just a lot of ifs.
I wonder if, like, given the fact that they drafted Tyler Warren, that having Daniel we loved that pick on draft night, and I don't know, I almost feel like having Daniel Jones as the starter might be the best thing for this team, given the fact that he can just dump it down to a Tyler Warren type, versatile threat that he is, that we saw at Penn State this past year. But yeah, I think that pickup was great, and I think if it is Richardson, this is a great safety net that he can have with Warren.
Question is, can he complete those short passes to Warren? We know he can complete a deep ball, but we don't know if he can complete the short passes.
Hey, just motion Warren, and they'll hand it off to him. That's what Penn State did all season.
and it worked. Just quick notes on last year and this year for the Colts. So last year, like I said, they went 8-9. The absolute perfect definition of mediocre. They went 1-7 against teams with winning records, went 7-2 against teams with losing records. That's the perfect definition of a middle of the pack team. This year, their schedule, one interesting note is that, would you agree with me that probably Houston and Jacksonville and the Colts are probably the top 3 teams in the division?
Yeah. I'd probably agree.
So they don't play Houston nor Jacksonville until week 13. And then 4 of their final 6 games, that means 4 of their final 6 games are against the Jaguars and the Texans. So that tells me if the Colts don't just stumble completely out of the gates, that the AFC South race could come down to the end of the year. But as for the Colts, most Colts fans know the 2 horrible streaks that have been going on. They have not won at Jacksonville since 2014. And they have not won a week 1 game since 2013. I feel like in order to make the playoffs, you have to end at least one of those streaks, especially when you're playing the Dolphins at home. But Yeah. It's another thing about that. What's weird about that week 1 streak is it's not like the Colts have been the Browns or just a really bad team these last several
Yeah.
years. They're just like right in the middle of the pack. It's just very strange that they have not won a week 1 game since 2013. And going back, I mean, I wrote it down. It's actually worse. They're 1-14-1 in week 1 games since 2009. And so that one win was in 2013 at home. It wasn't even an impressive win. It was week 1, 2013 at home with Andrew Luck as your quarterback. They barely beat the Raiders. Can you tell me who that Raiders quarterback was in that game? I will give
Terrell
you a
Pryor.
hint. It was Terrell Pryor. I was going to say it was an Ohio State. It was a Buckeye guy. But yeah, it took. So that was the best the Colts have been all the 2010s. And yeah, they barely beat a Terrell Pryor-led Raiders team at home in Week 1, and that's the only Week 1 win they've had since 2009. So it's just baffling that they haven't done it. But if they win Week 1 this year, who knows what happens the rest of the year?
That's awesome. Terrell Pryor Raiders. I love it.
I'm surprised you got. I know you're an Ohio State guy, but I'm surprised you got that.
Yeah, it just came to me just all of a sudden. I'm like, 2013. That was just a few years after they won the Sugar Bowl. Over under, I'm seeing at 7.5 win total. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna say they'll probably get right at that like 7 win total. That's a -120, so not a ton of value. But this division, I'm not really getting a ton of value on my picks on this one. What do you got for?
I'm going
Colts?
over. I just see. They're just the perfect definition of mid. They're going to go 8 and 9, or 9 and 8. They didn't make enough huge moves to move the needle. And like I said, they were 8 and 9 last year, 9 and 8 the year before. I think Daniel Jones, assuming that both those guys don't get hurt, Daniel Jones is on the exact same level as a Gardner Minshew, Joe Flacco guy. And what do they do with that? They went 8 and 9 and 9 and 8. So I feel like it's going to be exactly the same. So I'll go over that 7.5.
I'm banking on the pressure, the heavy pressure on the QB, head coach, GM weighing on them this year, and they'll lose at least one more game. Let's look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they went 4-13 last year. It was a tough year. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence went down with that injury, but he has a lot to prove under the new head coach, Liam Coen. He has to do something for this franchise, and the question for him is, does he want it? We've kind of heard the fact that football is not the most important thing to him, and we just got done talking about that with Scotty. But when it comes to football, it's a little bit different. This is not an individual sport. A team is counting on you, and he hasn't really committed since joining the NFL. But he's got one of the biggest contracts. So it better
5
start playing
years,
like it.
$275 million. Yeah.
Crazy. And one of the things I think, if you look at Jacksonville's front office, will they regret trading their 2026 first rounder to get Travis Hunter? Who knows? I don't know how they're going to use Travis Hunter. Obviously, they want to use him at wide receiver and then maybe sparingly at corner. I think one matchup that's really intriguing to look at is in Week 3 versus the Texans. It'll be the first meeting since the Azeez Al-Shaair hit on Lawrence that ended his year, and kind of got chippy there, especially with that hit. So that'll be interesting to see as tempers flare in that game. But the main question here is it all comes down to Lawrence. I love that Liam Coen's this slick new offensive coordinator, offensive head coach that's going to be taking on this team. What's he going to be? Is he going to be the Sean McVay type, or is he going to be the Mike McDaniel type that's not going to be able to lead as well as he should? But it does start and end with, can Lawrence commit?
Yeah, I think it's, as for the Travis Hunter thing, I think that's the right move when you're a small market team and you got a guy up there that's such a polarizing figure who has his own fan base and all that. I think that's a good move. I'll credit their child GM for doing that. I'm telling you, that's the youngest looking 34-year-old. They claim he's 34 years old, but it's amazing how young he looks. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence. Could you imagine if back in 2021, if the Jets would have had that first overall pick, and they would have taken Trevor Lawrence, and we would have had the exact same results there? I mean, he would be under so much more scrutiny and so much more pressure. It's the fact that he went to Jacksonville. It's that just now people are just now finally starting to realize, hey, didn't we think Trevor Lawrence was going to be really good? What's going on here? Because think about it, he's only played two. I would say he's played two half good years. So what was that? 2022. At the end of 2022, they got hot, went to the playoffs, had that epic comeback, and at the start of 2023, they also started playing really well, and then they fell apart by the end of the year. But yeah, outside of those two half seasons, it's been not great results with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you talked about their season went off the rails after he got hurt. Well, they went 2-7 in games that he started, and went 2-6 in games that Mac Jones started to finish 4-13. So I mean, the results really didn't change that much. Their defense was also really bad last year, which is kind of surprising considering I feel like they have one of the best edge rushing tandems in the league with Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker.
Yeah.
Maybe the most unpopular first overall pick in the last decade, but he's not a bad player by any means. He's actually a pretty good edge rusher. But yeah, they were dead last in the AFC in total defense. It's just, yeah, like you said, it all comes down to Trevor Lawrence. Does he have the right weapons with him? Does he have enough to work with? So he has ETN and Bigsby as his running backs. I think that's serviceable enough. And then Brian Thomas Jr., who had a pretty much, you could call it a breakout rookie year. He played really well last year.
Yeah.
Add that with Travis Hunter, who I would hope he plays more wide receiver than cornerback. I feel like that's what the Jaguars need more. So yeah, I think there's enough there, and with an offensive guy like Liam Coen, there's enough there for the Jaguars to get back to that level where they were 2 seasons ago. But I mean, Doug Peterson's, you would say he was a good coach. He couldn't succeed here in Jacksonville. Urban Meyer was a great college coach. He absolutely did not succeed here in Jacksonville. So you just wonder if it's just a doomed job once you take it. We'll see. I think they'll improve this year a lot. I think an offensive guy like Liam Coen will do wonders to Trevor Lawrence, assuming he stays healthy.
Yeah. Look, over under for the Jaguars, I'm seeing at around 5.5 is like the main line there, but I'm gonna go look at the 7.5 and go under at -115. I have it at under 7.5. Kind of the same thing I have with the Colts, so it's going to be a tight race there. What do you have for the Jaguars here?
This is a tough one. This is a very tough one.
It's a very tough one.
That's 7.5 because
especially trying to get value on the Jags is not easy.
Trying to get value. They have an easier schedule. Man, I put them in the same. I think I'll put them in the same tier as the Colts, or I see them at like 8 wins. So I'm going to go over. This is definitely my least confident bet,
right.
Probably of the AFC South, but I think I would go over just because I think there will be some improvement. Because I mean, it's not like Trevor Lawrence is awful.
Yeah,
not a bad quarterback. It just has been disappointing. So with an offensive guy in there, I feel like that should make things better. And yeah, I'm going to go. So that's why I'm going to go over.